but dudes written's a product of my shrewd penning. Confused in it, I'm saying I've chewed mics to a crew likes delusions, exuberant mic.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. We have to talk about NWA 73, which took place on August the 29th, 2021 in St. Louis, Missouri. At the Too Long Didn't Listen, this show, 2/3 of this show was absolutely shoddy. But there was some very good nuggets in it. I still give it a mostly thumbs in the middle, but I will be raving about something that I normally wouldn't rave about. So stay tuned. So let's start with the pre-show. And I start with the pre-show for a reason, because this is kind of where the show begins, but it actually leads into something on the main show. So Jax Dane is running down his resume about how he's won every title in the NWA except the TV title. And that he now, since he's won the championship series, he can challenge for any title that he wants. And that he wanted to wish his good friend Crimson, tag team partner, he wanted to wish him well on his pursuit of singles gold. So let's skip all the pre-show matches and go straight into the show. Because the first match is the Brawl in the Lou. No disqualifications. It's Tim Storm versus Tom Latimer versus Crimson. It's a triple threat match for absolutely no reason. Nobody's going to win anything. Nobody loses anything. It's just a triple threat match. No disqualifications. They're beating the hell out of each other for no reason. We'll get into that in a moment. Anyway, during Crimson's entrance, Jax Dane attacks him. Just beat the hell out of him during his entrance. So the first few minutes of the match was Tim Storm versus Tom Latimer, essentially. And they booked this thing. I was about to say similar to the Sabu, Shane Douglas, Terry Funk match, where one guy would consistently get eliminated and leave the other two by themselves. So that was the Crimson part when he was taken out. And then Tom Latimer put Tim Storm through a metal barricade with a flying swanton bomb off the top of the ladder. I can't believe they started the show with this. This led to Crimson coming down to the ring to check on Tim Storm. Then he jumped back in the ring to fight Tom Latimer. So now Latimer and Crimson are fighting. Then, some stuff happens and Tom Latimer gets taken down and Tim Storm and Crimson are fighting. And it ends up winning with Tim Storm beating Crimson with the perfect storm. This is actually pretty good. For a match that really had no reason to exist, it wasn't bad. Second match on the show, Kylie Rae versus Mickie James. Mickie James wins with the leaping DDT. This match was meh. There was a lot of obvious spots, and quite a few of them were blown. It's weird. Like, Mickie she hasn't lost that many steps, but she's clearly lost a step. And you can tell where they were trying to do the old some of the teases, like when Kylie Rae would tease a super kick, but Mickie wouldn't be in position to sell it. Like, you're supposed to sell that. I think super kick is like one of her things, and Mickie wasn't even in position to sell it because she was a little late getting up off the mat. But she still looked good. She didn't look as bad as she did on Raw. Like that one Raw performance she had, I think you know what you're talking about. I think it might have been one of the Oscar matches. She looked real bad. But here she didn't look so bad. So after the match, I always liked Mickie James' leaping DDT finish too. I always liked that. Where she kind of jumps in the air on the DDT. I always liked that. After the match, a masked woman attacked Mickie James, beat her up and hit her with a power driver. The woman then unmasked, and it was Deonna Purrazzo. I never understood the point of coming to the ring masked and then unmasking seconds later. I just didn't understand that. But I pretty much guessed it was Deonna Purrazzo from the body type. I mean, come on. You can see those turkey thighs anywhere. The third match on the show, I really zoned out on this. Tyrus the Terrible, who was goddamn awful, versus the Masked Man, who I think they're calling Scion now, and Jordan Clearwater versus the End and the Pope. Tyrus wins with the heart punch. The Masked Man and Tyrus were getting into it. I'm thinking Tyrus is probably going to get challenged for the TV title by this Scion, the Masked Man thing. This was bad. Tyrus is awful. He just looks awful. He's slow. His selling isn't really the way that it should be. He barely moves. He can barely take a bump. Sometimes he doesn't even take bumps. And the End blew a couple of spots in this match. It was sloppy. I just was like, ugh, this was not good. This next match, though, James Storm versus Chris Adonis was actually pretty fucking good. These guys worked hard. They did some really cool stuff. If you can find this match somewhere, you should go watch it. The highlight of the match was the Dusty finish, which I'm glad they don't overuse anymore, but it was nice to have it here. So Chris Adonis gets hit with the last call super kick. We get the 1, 2, 3, but Adonis's foot is on the ropes. So we get the false finish of James Storm thinking he won. Then of course he did not. There was a little bit of a lull in the action as Chris Adonis played with the beer by grabbing the beer bottle and drinking a little bit of it and spitting the water at it, spitting the beer at the ref and all that kind of stuff. The finish came with Chris Adonis basically luring James Storm into the corner. He sweeps the legs, stacks him, puts his feet on the ropes, and pins him. But then he did a really good thing by really getting the hell out of there. Like after he steals the pin, he runs away. So, but these guys really worked hard. I really enjoyed this. It's probably one of the better Chris Adonis matches I've seen in a while. His match with JTG not too long ago was actually pretty good too. He's actually becoming quite the decent worker. So Ric Flair came out there and held court for about 10 to 15 minutes and absolutely rambled. Ric Flair rules, okay? Sometimes he said the same thing over and over again. The thread that held all this together, if you could find it, it was paper thin. Was that everybody grew up watching him be the world heavyweight champion, and that's the legacy of the NWA. And that, this is what the NWA is all about. But he talked about signing autographs and calling celebrities, and everybody grew up on him being the world champion. Then he talked about, how he lived and breathed for St. Louis, and how, he loves Undertaker and Triple H and Vince McMahon for taking care of him all this time. And that, Triple H is an NWA guy. Triple H isn't a WCW guy. He has the NWA belt in his office. And then he tells some mumbling stories about Bruiser Brody and Harley Race and wrestling them in St. Louis. I actually watched the match between Ric Flair and Bruiser Brody in St. Louis. It was like an hour. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It's not the typical Bruiser Brody fare where him and Abdullah the Butcher just bleeding all over each other and fighting all around the arena, but it wasn't bad. So he talked about all the roads he traveled and how Sam Mushnick was a good payoff guy. He talked about getting $6,000 from Sam Mushnick, and he would go around tipping people $200 and because he was the world champion, and he was just rambling, bro. He was just rambling. Then he says that we need brands in wrestling because not everybody can be in WWE, not everybody can be in AEW. But this is a great thing. And when he said, he kind of made a little joke as he slipped his jacket off, that when Billy Corgan called him, he thought he was getting a title shot. He said, "I thought he wanted to be the challenge for the title." But he just said he just came to talk. He talked about how he wanted Randy Orton to beat that record, beat his record, but that wasn't until Charlotte hit 12. Now he wants Charlotte to do it. Then he says that he loves Vince and that Vince won't watch this, but he'll hear about it. And Vince will say that he is where he belongs. And you know what? To me, this was like when the Ultimate Warrior came back to WWE and he held court in the ring after the Hall of Fame. That's what this felt like to me. Ultimate Warrior didn't have as much time as Ric Flair did. But this is Ric Flair in his natural habitat. He is an NWA guy. This is the perfect place for him. It's not quite Ric Flair in Charlotte or CM Punk in Chicago. This was never his hometown, but the seat of the NWA for a long, long time was in St. Louis because of Sam Mushnick, who was the president of the NWA. So this was like a territory he hit often. This area of the country, he hit it pretty often. And so you get this perfect little mesh here where you get the past, present, and the future from the same theme from the women's thing. You get it here, where Ric Flair represents a lot of the past. And I don't go as far back in the NWA history as they would go with the women, as far as Mildred Burke and everything. But they did pay a lot of homage to Ric Flair and Harley Race in that era of the NWA. And this is the stuff that a lot of us are old enough to remember, even though I wasn't old enough to remember Ric Flair wrestling Bruiser Brody for an hour in St. Louis. I was 2 when that happened. So, but there's probably some people out there listening to this who were probably old enough to hear it, or see it, or saw the tapes, or, it is clips on YouTube, I think the whole match is on YouTube, actually. So from Ric Flair, this show hit the toilet, because then we got the 12-man Battle Royal. We were promised some surprises for the 12-man Battle Royal, and I thought surprise meant good. Surprise mean bad. This match was full of out-of-shape, lard-ass job guys with no cardio. JTG was in here, and he was the only one in here I recognized outside of the normal job crew from the NWA, like Marche Rocket. And I think Luke Hawks was in here. But the surprise 13th entrant was the winner, some guy named Judas. I have no idea who that is. I do not know who that is. And look, I'm not going to blame him for me not knowing who it is. I'm not going to blame him for it. I blame Corgan. I thought it was going to be somebody with some history, somebody good. It's not. It was Judas, whoever the hell that is. And he ended up winning the match. And I was just like, I don't care. But and this thing went on forever. Like, every time I looked at the screen, it just seemed like guys laying down all over the place and moving in a snail's pace. But I did see that somebody was holding a powerbomb position in the corner. Like, there was a superplex and one guy sneaks under with the powerbomb. They were in that position for a good 90 seconds. Probably 2 minutes. Why? Because somebody was in the middle of the ring and they was waiting for that guy to move. That's why. This match sucked. This blew hard. The next match, Chelsea Green versus Camille for the NWA Women's World Title. This match wasn't bad. Chelsea Green loses by submission. Camille, of course, worked the broken wrist of Chelsea Green, so it made sense. No real spots in this match that really caught my eye outside of Camille very smartly, bending the arm over the rope and that kind of thing that really focused on the arm. Camille is, I should have said this in the other, she reminds me a lot of Raquel Gonzalez, in so much as if you have the right ring general in there with her, she can appear to be really good. But when she's on offense, it's kind of clunky because she's very limited. But in this match, she did a little bit more than usual. Like she did a little, like a leg lace with the, kind of like you use the legs in a full Nelson, kind of. So that was pretty cool. So it wasn't too bad. The next match was for the NWA Tag Team Championships. It was La Rebellion, Mecha Wolf, and Bestia Say versus Aaron Stevens and JR Kratos. Conan came to the ring with La Rebellion because if you have Hispanics on your show, Conan will be there. He took some pot shots during this match, but this match was actually pretty solid. I'm familiar with Mecha Wolf and Bestia. I've seen them, of course, in NWA, but I've also seen them in some other places. I want to say The Crash. I think they're deathmatch guys. I'm almost certain Damien is a deathmatch guy. I remember watching him wrestle, I believe it was Penta, in Defy, which is a promotion in Seattle. Was it Penta that I watched Bestia wrestle? It was somebody. Was it? Don't get me the line. But it was a pretty old match. I think it was from like 2018 or something like that. So that was like the first time I had really saw him. I saw him in some other places too before he came to the NWA. But the aesthetic of those two guys are pretty badass. They win the tag team championships with their finish, or at least like a powerbomb backbreaker. Match wasn't bad, wasn't great, but wasn't bad either. This was the Puerto Rican. One of them is Puerto Rican, the other one is Mexican. I believe it's Mecha Wolf that's Puerto Rican. So following this match, Conan cut a promo about how it's a beautiful thing to see a Mexican and a Puerto Rican as tag team champions. And that, it's good that today's wrestling is inclusive, because when he was coming up, there wasn't many Hispanics in the United States. There wasn't a lot of women, African Americans, gay people, and stuff like that. And that, we're all here because we all love pro wrestling. And it's a good time to be a fan, because you get interpromotional matches like this one. And Conan can fuck off. Okay. I know, Conan. Come on. This is bullshit. Stop trying to pop the crowd, Conan. Nobody cares about that shit. The main event, though. I kind of want to talk extensively about the main event. Trevor Murdoch versus Nick Aldis for the NWA World Championship. Now, under normal circumstances, I will look at a guy like Trevor Murdoch winning the NWA World title, which it did happen. And I have said numerous times on this channel that he looks like a bag of salt, that he looks like a peeled, boiled potato, and that he has no business being anywhere near the World Heavyweight Championship. I do not like Trevor Murdoch, and that is that. But this is the power of good storytelling. Billy Corgan and whoever put this story together crafted an immaculate story that made people believe, that made people buy into somebody like Trevor Murdoch being the World Heavyweight Champion in a feel-good, emotional moment that not only elevates him but pays tribute to Harley Race. So Trevor Murdoch comes to the ring wearing Harley Race's colors, the red and the blue. He's Harley Race's student. He wants to follow in his footsteps. Harley Race is his hero. That's what he's coming in with. But he's also, of course, his own man. He wants to be the world champion. He's been screwed out of this title twice already. Nick Aldis has ruined his life. And now he's been backed into a corner, and he's saying, look, if I can't beat you, I'll leave wrestling forever. I'm done with this if you beat me. Nick Aldis, of course, accepts it because he's super arrogant. He's cocky, but he's also greedy and manipulative. And he's also a Harley Race student, because part of the story is that they met at the Harley Race camp. So we get this story where they're both trying to pay homage to world champions. They're both trying to pay homage to Harley Race in their own way, but they're also paying homage to other world champions. Like you see Ric Flair, the chops from Nick Aldis, or you see him using the angle slam, or him using other NWA World Champions moves in this match. And Trevor Murdoch was the exact same way. He pulled out Ric Flair's figure 4 leg lock. He used Harley Race's power driver to set up the position for the diving bulldog and actually won the match. It was very solid. It was well booked. I thought it was interesting. Aldis attacked him outside the ring in a cheap shot. They fought all outside the ring. The turn came where it was on the top of the stage. Nick Aldis spine busters him on the top of the stage, and Murdoch is down. That begins the good heat of the match. Corgan comes out there and demands that both of them get back in the ring. Corgan and Aldis have a confrontation right there on the stage. That feeds into the B story of Nick Aldis claiming that Billy Corgan has a conspiracy against him and trying to take the title off of him. So I'm sure that's the direction that we're going now that Nick Aldis has lost the title, and that is going to be Billy Corgan helped him. So, and he also had the referee. The referee kicked Aldis' arm away as he had the ropes during the abdominal stretch. That led to him getting into an argument with the referee, him shoving the ref shoving him back. The old Triple H spot, except he didn't take a bump for the referee, which is what Triple H would usually do. Ric Flair used to take the bump for the referee too, but Aldis didn't do it. And one of my favorite spots, and this is when I knew Murdoch was going to win the title, and I reserved myself to that fact, even though I don't like Trevor Murdoch, is when Aldis takes him outside the ring. And he's bashing his head against, the guardrail. And he's, beating him up in front of his son. And Trevor Murdoch's son is in the crowd watching. His teenage son yelling. And, his wife is out there. And his dad's there. I'm like, oh, his entire family is out there. and we're putting the camera on his family. Like, the camera avoided his family at first. Like, it wasn't like they were talking about them the whole time. It was when Nick Aldis went over there and started antagonizing them that the camera occasionally kept going back over there to show that they were super excited about, what was going on and how they were reacting. There was a big table spot in this match as well, where Nick Aldis knocked over the ring announcer and elbow dropped Trevor Murdoch through the table. Of course, I didn't get the finish. That wasn't the finish, but it was a real feel good moment at the end. It was kind of like, wow, it's one of those the boyhood dream. And Ric Flair came out there and shook his hand and congratulated him and told him he's there to carry the legacy of Harley Race and represent that title to the best that he can, and that he's the leader of the locker room, the leader of the business. He has to lead by example. His family came into the ring. They were excited. Tim Storm was crying on commentary. We're going to talk about commentary after all of this. So after he get a post-match promo, what Trevor Murdoch did, in which he says that I never dreamed this day would come, but standing here in front of all of you is exactly how I dreamed it. I thought you didn't dream it. Anyway. But he talked about how the fans are the reason he kept going. The fans believed in him, forced him to believe in himself. And now he's going to represent the title to the best of his ability. And he hopes to be as good as Harley Race. And he thanked everyone for their support before giving us the sign off to go home. So it was a well-booked story. You put a guy in there. He's an underdog because of his look and because of his demeanor. He was wearing trucker hats and that kind of stuff. And he doesn't look like the typical world champion should, which is classic NWA. NWA, you take a guy that people are kind of like, I can't believe you did that. But they've been doing that shit for years. Like, it would be easy for me to dismiss this as a Jax Dane level world champion, a Rob Conway world champion. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, why would you ever put the title on this guy? That would be very easy for me to do. But I'm not going to do that because I think the story was very well done. And I think that in the story, him winning was the best possible option. Like, you still could have told a good story of him losing and, still putting his, going out on his shield, prideful and everything. But I think this is the better story. Him winning the title to honor Harley Race is a great story. It's a great, exclamation point on his career. Now, how long is he the champion? Not long. Let's put it like that. I don't believe he will be champion very long. So, all this was champion 1,044 days. A tremendous amount of time that they put into Nick Aldis as the world champion. And they paid it forward in what was the biggest possible story that they could have. And this is what, hopefully I'm not going to, I didn't spend too much time talking about these guys, but this is what I wanted AEW to do. To spend a lot of time building up people, building up characters, not just inserting random guys into your show and saying, okay, look, we're hot now, we got momentum. They took a guy like Trevor Murdoch, who has no business main eventing pay-per-views, no business anywhere near a world title. They crafted a story around him where this all made sense. They crafted a story around this where all of this made sense. And even somebody who's jaded and hyper analytical and wants to tear into Trevor Murdoch is kind of like, you know what? That was fucking cool. That wasn't bad. That's what pro wrestling is about. They wrote a story that made me not only hate Nick Aldis, but like Trevor Murdoch. And they pulled it off successfully. They was able to sell a pay-per-view with Trevor Murdoch in the main event. Now, is it going to be like, some record-breaking pay-per-view? Probably not. But I think that, they proved a point that good stories drives names, not the other way around. Trevor Murdoch is not a WWE guy anymore. You know, he was there for a little while, but if you'd seen Trevor Murdoch then and you see him now, it's a completely different guy. You know, and plus it was like 10 years ago. So we're in a position now where this is what I've been asking AEW to do, an Impact. Take some guy and build around him. Come up with a really good story. Look at what they did. Everything converged here. And you can tell they've been building this story all year. You know, they've been building this story all year to end in St. Louis, where Harley Race is a superhero. You know, where he owned a piece of the office in the later years of the territory. You know, this is something. You know, this is major. This was major. This was, of course, the past, the present, and the future converging in this one place. Honoring the legends like Flair and Harley Race, while also highlighting guys like Aldis and Murdoch. Can't say anything negative about it. So, Ric Flair, Chelsea Green and Camille, the Tag Team Championship match, and the main event were the only good parts of this show. Like, legitimately good. The triple threat match was a pretty good spot fest, but who cares? The match, you know, you won nothing, you lost nothing. So there were no stakes, nothing mattered. So it's the big thumb in the middle show, but what I did like, I liked quite a bit. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. If you have nothing to say, just leave like a 1 or a 2 in the comment section just to help the algorithm, help the channel out. And I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.
Skin tone, so why attach yourself and piggyback the wealth you didn't earn or lack yourself? I'm telling you to own up to your own success and failures. It's a reason why these